With Kalista getting nerfed, which marksman do we see in the top lane today? Let's find out. Hey Summoners, Dan here with another ProGuides video for you guys. Today, we're going to be talking about some sleeper OP builds once again. I'm excited to talk to you guys about these builds because we've got some really spicy stuff stirring up on Summoner's Rift. Our analysts have done the research for you guys, so just sit back and enjoy the content. But first, can you answer our question of the day for me? Which champion do you resonate most with? For me, I personally connect with Rammus because no matter what gets thrown my way, I just shrug it off and say, alright, pretty Chad, and I like that a lot. Let me know your answers down in the comments below. Now, let's get started with the video. Alright, first things first, what marksman is being played top today? It's DRAVEN this time around. As opposed to his usual Bloodthirster into crit build path, however, he's got something new stirring. Players are running a combination of Hail of Blades alongside MURAMANA. Take advantage of DRAVEN's insane raw damage output. With 2 axes in hand, DRAVEN can walk up to his enemies and throw both of them at his opponent in a short frame of time, and still have some time to land in one normal basic attack as well. This makes DRAVEN's trading as well as his burst damage much higher, and as per the norm, ranged top laners have a grand old time bullying out melee champions in the top lane. For runes, you'll take Hail of Blades, Taste of Blood, Ghost Poro, Ravenous Hunter, Presence of Mind, and Legend Bloodline. For his items, build a MURAMANA, Berserker's Greaves, Sanguine Blade, Edge of Night, Ghost Blade, and Guardian Angel. Remember to take Presence of Mind to synergize with MURAMANA. The extra mana you receive will scale into some bonus attack damage as well, and that definitely isn't going to hurt you when you're playing DRAVEN. Sanguine Blade, in the same way that it's oppressively strong on Kalista top, is also amazing on DRAVEN. DRAVEN as a marksman can of course take advantage of all of the stats it gives. Lethality, damage, lifesteal, and attack speed are all things marksmen can't complain about having. However, DRAVEN specifically with his insane damage from Q benefits heavily from Sanguine Blade's lethality. He takes advantage of it extremely well, as the early power spike it provides supplements the bonus damage his Q deals. Now, next up, we have MAOKAI. He's been gaining a ton of popularity, especially in Korea. He's considered top tier there, but nonetheless, a new build we've actually seen some pro players use across all regions is AFTERSHOCK MAOKAI top. Sunfire Cape, alongside its sister items, all received a buff earlier this season in hopes of bringing tanks back. It worked out pretty well, as we could all tell when Ornn players could 1v9 and somehow 1v1 pretty much any champion in the game. Nevertheless, the combination of the Fire Nova from these items alongside AFTERSHOCK synergized well together as they give tanks a sizable amount of burst damage they can work with. On top of this, AFTERSHOCK provides guaranteed and immediate value during both trades and teamfights. Although Grasp of the Undying is typically better during longer, more drawn-out teamfights, that's always going to depend on how fed you are versus how fed your enemies are. We're not going to say this keystone is objectively better than Grasp on MAOKAI, however, it's objectively safer than it. This rune setup is especially good in losing matchups, as it'll help protect MAOKAI from turret dives. For the runes, take AFTERSHOCK, Demolish, Conditioning, Revitalize, Mana Flow Band, and Transcendence. For items, build a Sunfire Cape, Ninja Tabby, Spirit Visage, Gargoyle Stone Plate, Righteous Glory, and a Thornmail. That's a wrap on the top lane build, so let's take a look at the screen one more time to check those out. Alright, let's head on to the jungle next, guys. Jungle Morgana is pretty good, and I wish I could say it was gaining traction. Unfortunately, it's not, because almost no one is playing it. Good news is, we're here to tell you guys about it, so get ready to abuse her for some free LP gains. Jungle Morgana with Glacial Augment. Think about it for a second. How do you make a champion with an insane amount of crowd control even better? Give them more crowd control, I guess. By running Glacial Augment on Morgana, you do a couple of things. For one, during the early game, your ganks are that much scarier. Walk up to your enemies, and while they're trying so desperately to avoid your Q, you tag them with a Glacial Augment empowered basic attack to slow them. In situations like these, players tend to panic, and you can continue to close the distance to either bait your opponent's flash or get even closer to ensure you land that Q. As the game progresses, however, Glacial Augment serves to upgrade the Hextech GLP you're going to be building. Speaking of which, let's talk about her build real quick. Her runes are Glacial Augment, Hextech Flash Traption, Biscuit Delivery, Approach Velocity, Nimbus Cloak, and Absolute Focus. For the items, build Runic Echoes, Sorcerer's Shoes, Hextech GLP, Zanya's Hourglass, Rabadon's Deathcap, and Avoid Staff. There's so much synergy in this build, and it's absolutely insane. By running Approach Velocity, you're going to get bonus move speed when running towards slowed enemies. Whether it's from your basic attack, Hextech GLP, Ultimate, or even a Blue Smite, you're guaranteed to close the distance with your opponents. By running Nimbus Cloak, you can also use Blue Smite to gain a burst of movement speed, which will allow you to stay in ult range, or get into melee range of your opponents to hit your Q with certainty. Absolute Focus is a surprisingly strong rune on Morgana jungle because she tends to stay relatively healthy during her clears. The bonus AP it provides gives her a slightly faster clear, and every little bit doesn't hurt. Transcendence isn't a necessity because Runic Echoes, Hextech GLP, and Zanya's will provide 40% cooldown reduction. Next up in the jungle is Hail of Blades Echo. Hail of Blades is a solid rune on Echo because it makes activating his 3-hit passive the simplest task ever. Gone are the days where you miss Q and miss the opportunity to gain that burst of speed. With Hail of Blades, Echo can jump in and smack his opponents rapidly to start stacking his passive. Landing a single part of his Q and 2 basic attacks is enough to gain the burst of movement speed, which also means that it'll be easier to reposition for the return on his Q. If your opponents are quite fast themselves, this means that activating Echo's passive with an auto attack rather than the return of Q will allow you to run past your opponents so that your Q nails them on the second hit. For runes, take Hail of Blades, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Ravenous Hunter, Magical Footwear, and Cosmic Insight. For items, build Runic Echoes, Sorcerer's Shoes, Protobelt, Gnasher's Tooth, Rabadon's Deathcap, and a Void Staff. Gnasher's Tooth synergizes well with this build as it'll provide some extra on-hit damage, while also allowing Echo to hit 40% cooldown reduction with Runic Echoes and Protobelt. Alright, we're throwing those jungle builds up on the screen one more time for you guys, so take one last look as we head on to the mid lane next. Koreans have started playing a lot of Nimbus Cloak Galio with a Hextech Protobelt rush. While this might not be exactly new, the Nimbus Cloak part is at least. Since Galio has lost his ability to flash taunt, it's now come down to flashing earlier, or sometimes baiting your opponent into wasting theirs first. That's where Nimbus Cloak comes in. By using Ignite, you'll gain a burst of move speed that'll allow you to close the distance between you and your opponent. Pop Ignite, run at your opponents, and start charging your W. If your opponent is immobile, you could also flash on top of them and charge your W and continue to follow them as you predict or react to their own flash. Nimbus Cloak significantly increases Galio's kill pressure as one of his biggest challenges as a mid laner is getting in range of his opponents. For runes, take Aftershock, Shield Bash, Bone Plating, Overgrowth, Nimbus Cloak, and Absolute Focus. For items, build Hextech Protobelt, Mercury Treads, LUDEN'S Echo, Zanya's Hourglass, Rabadon's Deathcap, and a Void Staff. Next up, we have Conqueror Talon mid. Talon's W was nerfed this patch, but compensated with an increased AD ratio on its return. As a result, Conqueror is an even stronger choice than before on Talon, simply because it provides some extra attack damage for him during fights. Talon has insane AD ratios in general, so taking Conqueror further increases the amount of kill pressure he holds at all stages of the game. It's really easy for Talon to stack up Conqueror as well, so there's definitely no accessibility issues either. Talon's Bleed passive has a 200% bonus AD scaling ratio, meaning that if you all in your opponents, activate as a passive, and also fully stack Conqueror, you're guaranteed at minimum 26 extra damage on the Bleed at level 2. This is from his passive alone, and you can add in the extra damage he'll gain on his basic attacks Q and W as well. For runes, run Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Tenacity, Coup de Grace, Taste of Blood, and Ravenous Hunter. Unlike other Talon builds, taking Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter will further increase your presence in lane as you'll have more sustain to work with, in place of movement speed and burst damage. For items, build Tiamat, Boots of Swiftness, Black Cleaver, Duskblade, Death's Dance, and Edge of Night. You can then upgrade Tiamat to Ravenous Hydra or sell it for some more armor penetration. Running Death's Dance alongside Conqueror makes Talon much more difficult to kill, as you'll also have a ton of sustain to work with. Alright, that's it for the mid lane, so make sure to take a peep at the screen one last time, guys. Save those builds, write them down, do whatever you need. Next up, let's run through the bottom lane. LUDEN'S Echo Kai'Sa is gaining a ton of traction in the bottom lane, and we felt like bringing it up once again for you guys. LUDEN'S Echo provides cooldown reduction, burst damage, ability power, and even mana for Kai'Sa. The mana is important because she also likes to build MURAMANA, meaning she gets some extra AD from it. Once again, you'll want to run Presence of Mind with this setup as you'll gain an incredible amount of value from the synergy it has with MURAMANA. For runes, take Hail of Blades, Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, Ravenous Hunter, Presence of Mind, and Legend Bloodline. For items, build MURAMANA, Berserker's Greaves, LUDEN'S Echo, Gnasher's Tooth, Rabadon's Deathcap, and Zanya's Hourglass. As this is a more AP-focused build, Hail of Blades works rather well for Kai'Sa here. She's able to almost instantly apply 4 stacks on an opponent, then nuke them down with her passive for some insane burst damage. This build allows Kai'Sa to access all her upgrades, as she's able to build AD, AP, and attack speed with it. Especially because Kais's W refunds so much of its cooldown on hit, AP builds are starting to become much more popular, so definitely give this one a try. Next up in the bottom lane is DRAVEN yet again. It's quite surprisingly the same build. Although Sanguine Blade might not seem like a great choice since you won't get as much value as a duo laner from it, you have to remember that it still provides some amazing stats for DRAVEN. It essentially replaces Bloodthirster in this build, as it still provides attack damage and lifesteal. One thing players might not be aware of is the little fine print of Sanguine Blade. It provides bonuses when there are one or fewer nearby enemy champions. It says nothing about teammates. That means that when you knock your opponents out of lane, or if you're pushing down turrets without any contest, you're gaining an immense amount of bonus stats from it. If an enemy is diving you solo while your support is trying ever so dearly to save you, you still gain the bonuses. If you abandon your team and run it down a solo lane to split push, you gain the bonuses. Even if your support Yuumi is literally sitting on you while you're avoiding the rest of your team, as long as only one enemy or no enemy is matching you, you gain Sanguine Blade's passive. This item is not useless by any means just because you're playing a duo lane. The build is exactly the same as the top lane one, so don't worry one bit. Those are our bot lane builds, so we're throwing them up on the screen one last time for you guys as we wrap things up with supports. Our support build for this patch is OMNISTONE PYKE. PYKE is able to utilize a majority of the keystones in the hat pretty well. AFTERSHOCK, Electrocute, Hail of Blades, Dark Harvest, and even ones like Conqueror and Press the Attack aren't too bad either. The extremely low cooldown on OMNISTONE allows PYKE to play aggressively without having to wait on the long lockout periods of a traditional keystone such as Electrocute. At times, when PYKE does manage to randomly pull Electrocute or Hail of Blades out of the pool, this is easily his best case scenario. He can jump in for trades, just as strong as the typical PYKE setup, but also gain a new keystone to use within 5 seconds or less based on level. If a fight goes on for 5 seconds, that means PYKE will always be able to use 2 keystones during the fight. This is, of course, best case scenarios, but by poking and activating keystones you don't want, you'll eventually be able to fish for either Hail of Blades or Electrocute for trades that you can commit to. For runes, take Prototype OMNISTONE, Perfect Timing, Futures Market, Cosmic Insight, Nimbus Cloak, Celerity. For our items, build Pauldrons of White Rock, Boots of Mobility, Umbral Glaive, Ghost Blade, Edge of Night, and Deadman's Plate. Deadman's may not have AD, but it has health. PYKE automatically converts bonus health to AD, so having some extra armor and even more movement speed to work with is definitely nice to have on PYKE. With that, we're done with supports, so check out that build on the screen one last time in our recap. That's going to wrap up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take these builds into your normal games and see how you like them. Feel free to leave any comments or feedback down below. Make sure also to check out ProGuides.com as well as our YouTube channel, both of which we're constantly updating with new content. Until next time, good luck out there on the Rift.